You are completely wrong about time. You probably think you know what it is because you look at a watch or you feel yourself getting older. But that isn't time. That's just a sensation, a biological trick. Most people walk around with this poetic idea in their heads that time is a river. You imagine it flows, sweeping you along from the past through the present and into the future. You think it moved. But here is the problem with that beautiful image. If time is a river, how fast does the river flow? 1 second per second. That is meaningless. That's like saying a table is 1 table long. It tells you absolutely nothing about the nature of reality. The truth is much stranger, much more mechanical, and honestly a lot less romantic than a flowing stream. Time doesn't flow. Time doesn't push you anywhere. And if you think you have a good grip on how time works, just because you can count seconds in your head, you are in for a very rude awakening. Let's start with what goes on inside your brain, because that is where the confusion begins. You think your internal clock is a reliable instrument. It isn't. It is a chaotic mess of translation scheme. Consider a simple experiment. Try to count to 60 seconds in your head. Just sit there and count 1, 2, 3. You think you are tracking time, but what you are really doing is running a very specific, very personal program. Some of you, when you count, you hear a voice in your head. You are literally speaking to yourself, subvocalizing 1, 2, 3. If someone interrupts you and asks you to speak, you lose your count. The machine jams. But others, and this is where it gets interesting, don't hear a voice at all. They see images. They might see a tape measure with numbers on, it clicking past like a ticker tape. Clink, clink, clink. If you use that visual tape measure system, you can actually read a newspaper or check a laundry list while you count time. You can sort your socks, look at patterns in the weaving, and still keep that mental tape measure clicking perfectly. But the person who counts with a voice, they can't read a word without losing track of the time. This tells us something fundamental. What you experience as the passage of time is just a mental construct, a pattern-matching game your brain plays. It varies wildly from person to person. It is not a universal constant. It is a biological hallucination. So when we talk about physics, when we talk about the universe, we have to throw your brain out the window. We have to stop talking about how it feels and start talking about what it actually is. In physics, we have to be operational. That means we don't ask what is the essence of time, because that is a question for philosophers who enjoy arguing over coffee. We ask, how do we measure it? And the answer is almost disappointingly simple. Time is just a way of ordering events. That's it. It is a labeling system. Imagine you have a deck of cards. You lay them out in a row. You can say the jack is before the queen and the king is after the queen. The cards aren't moving. The table isn't flowing. The order is just a structural property of how the cards are arranged. Time is the table. Events are the cards. When we say time passes, we are just reading the cards from left to right. This brings us to the biggest mistake everyone makes. You think time is a container. You imagine the universe as a big empty box, and time is a clock on the wall of that box ticking away, even if the box is empty. You think that if we removed all the stars, all the planets, all the atoms, and all the light, time would keep ticking. Tick, tick, tick. Wrong. This is the Newtonian view, and it is dead. Time is not a background stage. Time is a measure of change. If absolutely nothing in the universe changes, no atoms vibrate, no light moves, no energy shifts, then time stops. It ceases to have meaning. You cannot define a second without a physical process to mark it. A swinging pendulum, a vibrating quartz crystal, a cesium atom oscillating. Time is not separate from the stuff in the universe. Time is a property of the stuff. This is where your intuition fights back. You say, okay, but surely time acts on things. Time makes me get older. Time causes the milk to spoil. No, it doesn't. This is a linguistic trap. Time is not an agent. Time doesn't have hands. It doesn't reach into the fridge and sour your milk. Bacteria do that. Chemical reactions do that. Entropy does that. Time is just the bookkeeping system we use to track the rate at which those reactions happen. Saying time did, it is like saying inches built the house. Inches didn't build anything. Carpenter's inches just tell you where the walls are. Time is the ruler, not the worker. let's push this ruler analogy further, because this is where things get really weird. If time is just a ruler we use to measure the distance between events, what happens if the ruler itself is flexible? This isn't science fiction. This is measurable fact. We used to think that a second was a second anywhere in the universe. If you had a clock on Earth and a clock on Mars, they would tick-tock in perfect unison. It feels obvious, it feels right, and it is completely false. The rate at which clocks tick depends on where they are and how fast they are moving. This is not a mechanical failure of the clock. It is a fundamental feature of reality.